It looks like there's chaos in Egypt, and there's a crackdown which may do away with the Muslim Brotherhood. Its days may be numbered after the worst bloodshed in the country's modern history.
Many Egyptians consider the Brotherhood a terrorist organization, and it's been a deadly threat to people throughout their country, including Christians. Chris Mitchell brings us the story.
On Sunday, Egypt's military chief, General Abdel el-Sisi, reached out to the Muslim Brotherhood, but said the army would oppose them if necessary. Sisi said the army was the guarantor of Egypt's stability. Despite Western media reports, most Egyptians were united.
And I think Egypt is saving the whole world from a terrorist organization.
In a recent interview, this Egyptian politician expressed what most Egyptians feel. They rejected the Muslim Brotherhood, which divided Egypt into two camps, the House of Islam and the House of War.
They divided the society. Who belongs to them and supports them, he belongs to the House of Islam. Who is out of that, Christians, liberal Muslims, secular Muslims, they are in the House of War.
Meanwhile, some Egyptian Christians made their way to Sunday services over the weekend, despite violent attacks on them earlier in the week.
I was constantly verbally abused for being a Christian. Even on the public buses, they would insult me for being Christian and accused us of being infidels, and that we as Christian people deserve to be wiped off the face of this country because they believe that we do not deserve to live in this country.
Christians bore the brunt of retaliation by the Muslim Brotherhood and Morsi supporters following the army crackdown on the Muslim Brotherhood last week. Dozens of churches, an orphanage, and Christian institutions like Egypt's Bible Society were attacked or burned.
We need to pray for our brothers and sisters in Christ in Egypt. This is a very difficult time for them, unprecedented in modern history in Egypt, this type of massive attack against Christians, their institutions, churches.
El-Sisi said the government would quickly help restore and rebuild the churches that were attacked and burned. In the U.S., Egypt's turmoil sparked a debate in Congress on whether the U.S. should continue its more than $1 billion in military aid to Egypt.
There are no good choices in Egypt. The fact is there's no good guys here. But of the two, I think there's more opportunity to protect American interests if we work with the military and continue our relationship with the military. We have to have access to the Suez Canal. Al-Qaeda should not be allowed to gain a foothold. The treaty with Israel should be enforced. I don't think that can be done with the Muslim Brotherhood. It possibly can be done with the military.
The major question facing Egypt now is the future of the Muslim Brotherhood. Will it stop its protest or continue its fight against Egypt's army and pursue its dream of an Islamic state? Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Thanks, Chris. From the news I see, it's amazing that our Secretary of State and other officials in the administration are putting pressure on Egypt to make accommodation for the Brotherhood. The Brotherhood is a terrorist organization, and yet our government doesn't seem to understand. Representative Peter King seems to get it. Our CBN News terrorism analyst, Eric Stackelbeck, now joins us live. Eric, will Egypt, do you think, move to outlaw the Brotherhood now?
Pat, it looks like it's moving in that direction, but here's the big question. Okay, Egypt may outlaw the Brotherhood, but will the Brotherhood accept it? I don't think they will, Pat. We've been down this road before with the Muslim Brotherhood. Back in the early 1950s, their headquarters in Cairo was burnt to the ground. The Egyptian military rounded up Brotherhood leaders, executed them, imprisoned them. This movement was done for decades. They were banned in Egypt, Pat. They rose all the way back to gain the presidency last year, mercifully for only 1 year. I think this time, Pat, because the Brotherhood was so close, they were so close to seeing their dreams fulfilled of Egypt as an Islamic state, of wiping out the Christian population there, of instigating a war with Israel. They thought they were so close, Pat, and then it was wrenched away from them. There's no way they will go quietly here. I think it's going to continue to be bloody, very nasty days ahead for Egypt. So I think the Brotherhood, very good chance they will be outlawed. As Chris said in his report, the majority of the Egyptian population wants the Brotherhood crushed decisively, but the Brotherhood won't go down without a fight.
How about these attacks on the churches? Were they sponsored by the Brotherhood or some other group?
Pat, absolutely. This is Muslim Brotherhood through and through. Everyone watching right now needs to know that this is a group one of its core tenets is a hatred of Christians. The Muslim Brotherhood wants to see a genocide of Christians in Egypt right now, Pat. It is no mistake what's going on right now. They're trying to replicate what they did during the 1930s, Pat, with the Jews of Egypt. A lot of people might not know that there were 80,000 Jews living in Egypt as recently as the 1930s. Now there's less than 100 Jews there. The Muslim Brotherhood instigated pogroms against the Jewish population of Egypt, collaborated with the Nazis to extend the final solution to Egypt, and they want to do that now, Pat, with Christian churches. This is premeditated. This is not a coincidence, Pat. It was almost instantaneous. As soon as the Egyptian military started this crackdown against the Brotherhood last week, all of a sudden, Pat, magically, Christian churches went up in flames almost simultaneously. The Brotherhood saw an excuse to kind of enforce that genocide they want to carry out against Egypt's Christians.
All right. Explain for me the standing of the Secretary of State of the United States. What does our administration think they're doing?
Pat, right now, everyone needs to understand that we are on the side of terrorists. The U.S. government is on the side of Islamic terrorists in the form of the Muslim Brotherhood, the oldest modern Islamic terrorist group, the group that spawned al-Qaeda, spawned Hamas. Our government is on their side. To me, it's a sad day. And right now, I believe the Obama administration would love to see Morsi back in power. He was their guy from the beginning. And Pat, really, I will take it back to that infamous Cairo speech of June 2009, where President Obama was going to heal the rift with the Muslim world. His administration personally requested that the Muslim Brotherhood be at that speech. So from the beginning of this administration, they have chosen the Brotherhood as our guys, our outreach partners in the Muslim world. And to me, you know, the Muslim Brotherhood is a totalitarian death cult. They are terrorists, yet we are condemning the Egyptian military. Maybe the Egyptian military, Pat, look, no one likes to see bloodshed, but maybe the Egyptian military knows something we don't, apparently, about the Muslim Brotherhood. And I think of the old adage, live by the sword, die by the sword, when I see what's going on right now with the Muslim Brotherhood.
It's amazing. The king of Saudi Arabia has taken a firm stand with the military of Egypt, which is understandable. But what about the oil supply? What is this crisis going to do in relation to that?
You know, Pat, why should everyone over here in America care about what happens all the way over there in the Middle East? Well, I'll give you an idea. The Suez Canal, which Egypt controls, about 7% of the world's oil and liquefied gas passes through the Suez every day on its way to Europe and, yes, America. If the Muslim Brotherhood and its terrorist allies target that Suez Canal, shut it down, every one of us will feel it in our pocketbook. Every time you go to the pump, you're going to feel it. Oil and gas prices will skyrocket. Also, if Egypt instigates something out of that Sinai Peninsula against Israel, once again, the global economy and every American will feel it.
Eric, thank you very much. We appreciate the incisive analysis of Eric Stakelbeck. He's written a book about the Brotherhood, America's Next Great Enemy. And this is not the one we ought to be supporting as a government. This is the one we should be opposed to. This is a book that you need to read. It's available where books are sold. Well, here at home, we may see some changes in our government's massive surveillance programs. Lee Webb has that story from the CBN newsroom. Here's Lee.
That's right, Pat. President Obama may have to go along with reforms at the National Security Agency. Members of Congress are pushing out for changes in how the NSA actually operates. That comes after the Washington Post reported that the agency broke privacy rules or overstepped its legal bounds thousands of times over the last 5 years. The report was based on top secret documents provided by NSA leaker Edward Snowden. President Obama has repeatedly said that Congress has been thoroughly briefed on the programs, but some lawmakers doubt they're getting the full story. Former Republican presidential candidate Rick Santorum tells CBN News he wants to start a movement aimed at changing the culture in this country, and his focus is on the movie industry. David Brody has that story.
When you think Rick Santorum, you think politics, but hold on a minute. Meet Rick Santorum, the movie executive of family-friendly Echolight Studios.
God is alive and active in so many people's lives. We have so many stories to tell.
The latest story is set to debut next month. It's called Seasons of Gray, the modern-day story of Joseph.
I grew up being taught not to question God. Don't come back now, Brady, you hear me? But when you're caged in the back of a cattle hauler, you want to know, where's God?
The movie is done entirely by Watermark Community Church in Dallas. But he says, don't worry, this is solid, high-quality work. He believes compelling movies made by churches are vital in changing our culture.
I think it was Aristotle who said, give me the storytellers and I will control the country in a generation. Well, who tells the stories? Well, 100 years ago, it was the church. It was the family. It was the neighborhood, the library. Today, it's Hollywood.
It shouldn't be surprising that Santorum is out to change the culture. He's been preaching about it through the prism of politics for decades.
We have to engage as much as the other side does.
And he says millions of donor dollars are coming in from those willing to engage in this culture fight. But a vital part of this comes from church members. Echolight has come up with a way for Christians to set up movie screenings in their hometown movie theaters to spread the word.
We give you the good quality product. You then go out and can evangelize in your own community, bring people in.
Santorum knows a thing or two about bringing people in. He finished a strong second to Mitt Romney in last year's GOP presidential primary. And this year, he's been back in early voting states like Iowa, fueling speculation of another presidential run.
I need to keep my options open for a potential run.
But whether it's politics or the movie industry, the goal is still the same: an American culture that defends and embraces Judeo-Christian values. David Brody, CBN News, Washington.
Echolight Studios is partnering with best-selling Christian author Max Lucado on this project. His new book, You'll Get Through This, is being released along with the movie. Both share a message of hope and encouragement, Pat, during difficult times.
Well, Rick Santorum's a good guy, and we wish him the very best in this effort. I've been involved in some movie productions. Porchlight Studios was something that I was head of and started. And we did the Book of Virtues and some other things. So it's a tough slog, but it can be done.
Okay. But we need some good movies.
We sure do.
Same-sex marriages went into effect today in New Zealand. The law was changed there back in April to permit gay weddings. About 36 same-sex couples plan to marry today in towns and cities throughout New Zealand. The Superbook team is reaching audiences throughout the Philippines. Over the last month, they've hosted events in major shopping malls in Manila. They feature celebrity entertainment and trivia games for children and parents with lessons from Superbook. They also watch a special screening of the program. They get to meet the character Gizmo and do a sing-along of the Salvation Poem. The live broadcast of Superbook reached more than 1 million viewers in the Philippines each week. You can find out more about what CBN is doing around the world by logging on to cbn.com/international.